There we go. I had to make sure that the mic is on. DeShaun Tate back with you. Feel like we haven't done this in quite a little while. The final buzzer with DeShaun Tate, episode 12 of the final buzzer. You guys know that we do this each and every single night, Monday through Friday, that is, to conclude all of the NBA playoff games for the night. Let me throw this out there real quick because I know that we had a fascinating thriller 2 games of NBA basketball on tonight. And so let me first throw this stuff out there. Make sure that you know that you can subscribe anywhere that you find. Make sure that you can find. Make sure you find that you can subscribe to the podcast. Tate's Take the Podcast anywhere that you find your favorite podcast, that being iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Red Circle, Stitcher, the whole 9, also streaming live on YouTube. And make sure that you follow on social media platforms, all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS, where basketball lives. Now, let's jump into this one first, especially because I got somebody that is on the that's on the IG live that's talking a little bit of noise, talking about don't bring that Clipper stuff up in here, my homie from LA. But make sure, go make sure that you follow that as well, because we're doing it there too, streaming live there too. Now, 2 brilliant games today. We usually go doubleheader style with the first game first, go to second game second, but we're gonna go with the first one. We're gonna go with the first one last and the second one first. Let's do game 7, number 2 seeded Clippers taking on number 3 seeded Denver Nuggets. 104-89. Denver wins the series 4-3. Now, I want to start off with Denver first. We'll put the Clippers on the back burner for a second. Let's start out with Denver first, since they're the winners. First conference final in 11 years. Salute. Cool. Jamal Murray being a player that I realistically thought was one who needed to have a big stat game. He had that. Needed to get out and be the front runner, be that guy that can put the players in position to where they can get the Clippers defense on their heels. You got to get out in the transitional offense and force the Clippers into backpedaling situations. One of the reasons behind why I really believe that that this Denver team was so successful, and a lot of people have heard me say this multiple times, besides the fact that they had to limit the Clippers' defensive opportunities and getting stops and prevent them from setting up their defenses as they got out in transition. But besides that point, playing with house money. I was told a long time ago at a very young age, you don't want to ever go against a player or a team that doesn't really have anything to lose, and they playing with house money, and they got the confidence riding them with themselves. You're talking about coming off of 2 games that they won, arguably or inarguably was up for 3.5 quarters in game 3. They were looking like the better team for much of this series already anyway. But the firepower, especially on the defensive end, that can be matched on the offensive end, for the Clippers was going to be hard to kind of duplicate and to deal with when you start thinking about Patrick Beverley, and arguably the best perimeter defender in the game. Kawhi Leonard, arguably the best two-way player in the game. Montrezl Harrell, who got a 6th Man of the Year award and is pretty good defensively, even though he's a little undersized. Plus you throw Paul George. Do they still call him Playoff P? I don't know if they still call him that these days, but that is what I'm being told. And now they're going to call him Get Sent Back Home P. And before we bring in a couple of my good buddies here, I want to make sure that we don't overlook Lou Williams. Love Lou Will. Super cool dude. Got more than enough time to enjoy himself at Magic City and to chow down on some of his famous lemon pepper Lou wings. So I'm going to bring in my dude, Danny Thompson. I'm going to bring in my dude, we call him the commissioner, Gordon Robinson, who is a aficionado of basketball. I can't see his face just yet, so I'm going to need him. I'm going to bring in Danny first because I can't see Yeah, I can't see the commissioner, Gordon Robinson, just yet. So I'm going to need to see how we can get that one figured out, or if he can kind of log out and then log back in. But first, let's bring up my dude, D to the T, DT, Danny Thompson. I appreciate you for joining me, bro, because we've had some awesome, like, dude, we talking about this game 7. This was like a Tyson Douglas. Nobody's seen it coming. I got a good feeling you're going to be that DT that's going to say that you saw it coming. What says you on everything that you saw take place on the night with this game 7, Denver advancing?
I mean, listen, you had the perfect, like, undercard bout, if you want to call Miami and Boston was the undercard bout to this. And just as good as it was, listen, I'm not going to be that person, even though I said it last night. Oh my God, I'm going to be on the buzzer. Listen, I didn't expect it to be like this. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect the Clippers to go out like this. I didn't. I don't think nobody expected the Clippers to go out like this in this game. Now, was Denver great tonight? Yes, they were great. They were so good defensively last night. It was completely tonight. It was just completely. I can't put into words how great they were defensively, but I don't know what more you can say about how great Denver played on both sides of the ball tonight. Jamal Murray, every year in the playoffs, DT, we've talked about this. There's always one player that becomes a star on this stage. It happens every single year. We go back to Dame Lillard a couple of years ago. We talk about Jason Tatum a couple of years ago when Kyrie Irving got hurt in Boston. It's always a player that takes that leap. When you look at the Denver Nuggets, everybody knows Nikola Jokic. But I guarantee you now know who Jamal Murray is. If you didn't watch him in round 1 and Donovan Mitchell in their scoring fest in round 1, you definitely know how good he is now. And remember, that was against a defense that had Patrick Beverley and guys who can guard. The Lakers could be in trouble starting on Friday night because DT.
Here we go.
Listen, I'm not saying this. I'm just saying they could be in trouble because the Lakers struggle with guards who can score. Look at Damian Lillard. If Lillard didn't go down, Portland puts up more points. Now Jamal Murray, who's done it against Donovan Mitchell, who's done it against one of the best defenses in the league. Now you got Rajon Rondo, Danny Green, Alex Caruso, the ghost of Michael Cooper. I don't know who's going to guard him in this series. That's all I'm saying.
No. So we talked about Denver playing with house money. We know that already. Okay. We know they're going to come in confident. Jamal Murray have said, we play our best basketball when nobody's giving us a chance or when we're kind of playing from behind within the series. Asked about the Los Angeles Lakers in his post-game comments and said they have to respect us too. And I respect him for saying that. You a betting man, DT? Because I know we don't put some stuff out there before already.
I know I already owe you some barbecue as it is. So,
North Carolina barbecue. That's not just any barbecue.
Listen, we're going to Smithfields, bro. We'll make that drive up to the good part of the year. We'll go to Smithfields. Am I willing to put a betting man? Here's the thing with this series, it's hard to bet.
I want to take my boy to Magic's so we can get some of them. I want some of them lemon pepper.
It's hard to bet on this series right now because here's the thing.
It's not hard.
No, it is because with the LA Lakers, game 1 has always been the Lakers' litmus test game. They've lost both game 1s in round 1 because of the fact of it's a feeling out process. Denver, the Lakers have almost a week off in between games. So it could be some rust in game 1. On top of that, the Lakers seem to play better when they're like Denver when they're down in the series. Okay. The real question is if the Nuggets can land a couple of punches and get game 1, can they win game either 2 or game 3 and keep the pressure on the Lakers to be forced to be down in the series? Denver has not played a game or a series where they've been up. They've either been tied or they haven't been up at past anywhere past game 2. So if the Nuggets get ahead of the series, can they be able to, like Jamal Murray said, can they keep that same level up when they're not down instead of when they're up? That's the thing. You got to jump on the Lakers. You're going to have to win the first 2 games. You do not want to get down to LeBron James. I don't care how great you play. LeBron James is LeBron James, and this Lakers team is the Lakers. If you get down more than 2 games in the series, I don't know if Denver can come back down 3-1 against the Lakers. If it is, Jamal Murray might be in the Hall of Fame.
Jamal Murray was looking good. Obviously, a guy that averaged 20 points, had a plethora of points here on the night, and just kept consistently and persistently hitting dagger after dagger to seal this thing up and make sure that the Clippers, there was no coming back. 25 points at the half for him. 20 of those points in the first half came in the second quarter. First team to erase a 3-1 series deficit in the same playoff year. This is a team that's making NBA history and I'm not saying that they're going to beat the Lakers. I'm not saying that they're going to win a championship. I'm not saying any of that. But what I am saying is that if you follow storylines and such, teams that go on to higher heights and win championships, a lot of it comes along with a lot of luck and a lot of these similar type and style of games and how they've gone about winning them. When you start looking at the fact that, not only are they the first one to erase a 3-1 and make history, but even more so, they just weren't going away. Like, it just wasn't happening. They felt they had that kind of like, our time is now type of mentality. And that was kind of the difference, what I think, between them and the Milwaukee Bucks, because those are two teams in separate conferences that had high expectations over the course of the last at least 3 years. And I know people are going to talk about the Giannis injury and so forth, and I don't want to get into that so much, but just talking about them coming into this season and had high expectations and realistic expectations to maybe make it to the finals, but certainly to make it to the conference finals. But one team was able to do that. The other one wasn't. And I'm not so sure that it was just because of one simple player got hurt, although that we are talking about the MVP. However, this is a Denver team that easily could have thrown in the towel. DT, talk about some of the fight that you saw that they had to be able to come back and do what they've been able to do and make history.
Listen, I mean, it starts from the top down. People, when you look at the playoffs, you look at the coaches, Mike Malone doesn't get enough credit. People looked at the early part of the series when Michael Porter Jr. wasn't getting the ball. And you remember Porter had said something about how the offense was ran and how it should have more. But if you look at it, besides Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, the one name nobody is talking about
is it G?
It's Paul Millsap.
Oh, really? Okay, I thought you was going to go Sparty on me. I thought you was going to go Gary Harris.
I'm going Paul Millsap, because I think Paul Millsap had the turning point in the series when he did not back down from Marcus Morris. I want to say it was in Game 5 when they started coming back and Marcus Morris got in his face and he did not back down. Paul Millsap is a G. Listen, Paul Millsap is one of the most toughest players in the league. Is very versatile. He's going to be huge in this Lakers series because Nikola Jokic is not going to guard Anthony Davis. That's going to be Paul Millsap. Millsap is a very, very good defender, extremely good defender. Millsap can hang with Anthony Davis if Davis tries to get low bottom. Millsap is super strong. Millsap is super long. Is he athletic as Anthony Davis? No, but Anthony Davis is going to have to work for every point the entire series. Millsap did not get the credit. I don't think he's get the same type of credit as Murray, the same as Jokic. Another key thing is, like you mentioned a second ago, Sparty. Gary Harris is back in the lineup. All right. Gary Harris, listen, he might have his offensive struggles, but Gary Harris can defend. And for a team that doesn't have Will Barton, he's been out the entire time, you need all the players that can defend as possible. Remember, Gary Harris didn't play in round 1, and they almost got eliminated by Utah. Gary Harris was starting to feel himself, get himself back in the rhythm. He hadn't played in a while. Now he's back to being Gary Harris. If he's not offensively, it's definitely defensively. He's going to play in this series. He's going to be one of the ones guarding LeBron James. Listen, they're going to take turns guarding LeBron James this series because nobody can guard LeBron James on the Nuggets single-handedly. Okay, Jeremy Grant might try. Michael Porter Jr. will get destroyed because he doesn't play defense. All right, Will Barton's not here. So what are you going to use? You can't use Bol in this series. Somebody's going to have to defend LeBron James in this series. Gary Harris will probably get a lot of it. You're not going to put Jamal Murray on him. I mean, really, what options do you have? Especially if Millsap is on Anthony Davis, because you don't want Jokic guarding Anthony Davis. You don't want him doing that. That would just be, as Shaq would say, barbecue chicken.
Well, I'll say this. There's not an answer. And I think that, I mean, at the end of the day, when you start talking about Denver and defense, those are things that just typically don't match. I don't think
except
Clippers,
for tonight.
Well, however, the Clippers were just missing a lot of those shots. They were mentally out of the game as well. I mean, I hate to be the person that's like, yeah, but I'm taking a little bit of Denver's credit on defense away. I don't want to be that guy because they just beat the freaking Clippers for crying out loud. So but a lot of these things that typically that are the bread and butter for the Clippers just were not going in the favor of the Clippers tonight. And might I add, and I'm gonna steal this little bit of a thought and process and idea away from my cousin who came up with just a brilliant, no wonder he's a Tate. I think he gets his smarts from me. The common denominator here between the 2019-2020 Clippers and the Lob City, DeAndre Jordan, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin Clippers is one man, and that's the man standing on the sideline calling the plays. Now, I'm not saying that he got everything to do with it, but he a 3-1, a championship coach who knows what they're doing. That it's starting to feel like it's the equivalent of us knowing that Jim Boeheim didn't win that 2003 national championship. We know that was Carmelo. I'm starting to feel like we knew that was Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen that took that thing and cut it down.
Well, to your first point about the defensive thing, tonight was a bad shooting night for the Clippers. But can you explain the fact of you couldn't hit a shot in the previous two games, blowing 15-point leads in all three games? Because I think they have a double-digit lead tonight as well too. It's the fact of Denver played defense. Jokic had 3 blocks tonight. When's the last time you seen Nikola Jokic with 3 blocks in 3 quarters? I haven't seen it except for 2K. He was protecting the rim like he's a shot blocker. The Nuggets, you gotta give Nuggets credit on defense. It takes points to score points, but to erase 15-point deficits, defense has got to be involved in it somehow.
And I'm not saying
it's not. You gotta give credit where credit's due on the defensive side of the ball for the Nuggets. And listen, the second half in the last 3 games, the Nuggets have dominated the Clippers in the second half. It just seems like the Clippers played the first half, and except for tonight, because I'll be honest with you, end of the first half, something was inside of me that said, okay, Denver erased that lead once again. It's now 2 points at halftime. The Clippers came out to start the third quarter, and Denver did the same thing they did in the previous games, which was basically get Jokic to the top of the key, let him assist everywhere, backdoor cut. If he can't get a screen, they do the switch screen and roll, and Jamal Murray was just looking like Gilbert Arenas out there, firing from behind the three-point line.
Whether you call it agreeing to disagree or you're calling it disagreeing to disagree, if you consider getting the defensive rebound a defensive effort, then I can give them the credit defensively. And
it's not the defensive rebound. It's the fact of what causes the defensive rebound, which was good defense to cause bad shots.
But it wasn't so much that on tonight. I personally didn't see that. Whether we're watching the same game, different game, or something in between, regardless of the fact, I'm just saying that I respect on what you've seen,
of course,
but I didn't see that. And what I do relate and tie into this, because I know I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the Clippers, and then we're gonna get to the first game of the night. But what I seen out of and what I relate to Gary Harris and the kind of contribution and the production and just that role that he has had, how different of a team that they look. It is very similar to what the Lakers have in Rajon Rondo. The Lakers looked one way without Rondo. The Nuggets looked that same way without Gary Harris. And now they both identically almost look like they're having the same effect for their team. Both of them are also missing out on a player between Will Barton and Avery Bradley that is significant pieces to the rotation, to the team, especially from a defensive standpoint. Now, the Clippers, however, had the opportunity to be the first time going to the conference final in franchise history. That won't happen. And I really felt like coming into this game that they were a team that needed to get out early, get out to a big lead early. You know, they needed to also hold that lead. They needed to deliver the knockout punch. And I'm going to give you a chance here in a second. They needed to win in dominating fashion, and they needed to prevent Denver with an opportunity to gather its confidence and be spearheaded by that confidence, and and close out any opportunities for Denver to capitalize and to counter. Go ahead.
I agree. The fact of the Clippers need to get a big lead so they can hold it, so they know that this is not water. You mentioned a point earlier about the common denominator being Doc Rivers. I look at Doc Rivers this year the same way I look at Mike Budenholzer in Milwaukee. Having that long time off affected both Milwaukee and affected both the Clippers. And I'll tell you why it affected both of them. Both of them were playing some of their best basketball at the time of the stoppage. What happened in between? Well, you lose momentum. Milwaukee, listen, even you can mention earlier, you can say Giannis was injured. They were down 3-0 before Giannis even missed a game. I'm not even trying, like you say, I'm not trying to hear that. Miami outplayed them. Miami outplayed them before Giannis even got hurt and as an afterthought. The Clippers were rolling. Well, if the Clippers, we don't have COVID. I'm just saying, we're not saying here nor there, but if COVID doesn't happen, Lou Williams is still in rotation. Montrezl Harrell never would have missed significant amount of time, including the beginning of the bubble. Now, mind you, Montrezl Harrell lost his grandmother. Who knows if that played a part in him not being the same player he's been the entire time?
We're not about to do that, DT. We're not about to do that, because that right there can also be considered a motivational and an inspirational push.
But at the same time, though, everybody
deals with it different. I get it.
Yeah, like I say, it could have taken him out of his game. But here's the thing: no matter what happens in a situation, the Clippers were supposed to be playing on Friday nights against the Lakers in Game 1. We can say all these different things. Lou Williams left the bubble, whatever. Lemon pepper. We can call it whatever. Lemon pepper gate. We can call it whatever you want to. Okay, I'm gonna say another thing that hurt was Landry Shamet getting hurt in the first half, forcing Reggie Jackson to play extensive minutes in this game tonight. Scary. But listen, no matter what happened, there's no way you blow 3 double-digit leads in 3 consecutive games. I think all 3 of them, they were at least up 15 points in all those games at one point. You don't blow 3 15-point leads in 3 consecutive games. Like you said, there's no pass in this one. You can say, okay, this affected this one, but it doesn't affect the fact that you were up 15 points. You blew leads. You forgot what defense looked like, and the Nuggets kept doing, DeShaun, the same thing. High screen and roll with Jokic at the top of the key, and Jokic is over there looking like Arvydas Sabonis was supposed to if he would never got hurt and he came over to the United States 10 years too late. That's what Jokic was. He was literally pinpointing passes, looking like Tom Brady in an NFL offense, just hitting different players left and right. Listen, I'm not taking nothing away from the Nuggets, because it was, if I thought round 1 was amazing, doing it 3 times against the Clippers and Doc Rivers. Is it Doc Rivers' fault? You don't blame him for this. It's year 1. It's year 1 with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. It's a brand new team for the most part. Their team changed a lot. Okay. They added Kawhi Leonard and they traded half the roster to get Paul George. It is what it is. If this is year 2, Doc's got to go. Because it's year 1, you kind of give them the pass. The same thing with Budenholzer. Because they had the best record in basketball and they were cruising through the Eastern Conference, yes, they epically crashed and failed in the second round. Budenholzer gets 1 more year with Giannis, and whatever they decide to do, and I hope it's not Chris Paul, whatever they decide to do, give him 1 more year, because if this was next year, they're both out the door. Budenholzer gets done the same way he did in Atlanta. You got us here, but you can't get us to the next hump. You got to go. Doc, it's 8 years, and we still haven't seen the conference finals. You got to go too. So I give them both 1 more year, but Mike Malone outcoached Doc in the final 3 games of the series, and it wasn't pretty.
And not only that, but I think a lot of the players pretty much outplayed the Clippers too. And we're going to get to that here in a second. One of the things you mentioned was Doc Rivers and talking about the coaching. Before we go ahead and finish off this particular part of our recap, let's go ahead and jump in on some of the things that the homies got to say about it. TJ Reeves saying Doc Rivers has seriously blown a 3-1 lead now 3 times in his coaching career. That is amazing. We got to make sure that is something that you highlight right there. Oscar Sanchez, appreciate him for checking in with me. Hey man, what a comeback series from the Nuggets. What a comeback, dude. And they celebrate. If I'm them, dude, I'm pop. I know people not a big fan of it, dude, but I'm not gonna lie. If I'm in that locker room, I probably am the dude that's popping the champagne bottles. Oh, Toro also checked in with us tonight, called him Pandemic P, not Playoff P, talking about Paul George, Pandemic P.
Listen. I call him Perry the Platypus. If you watch Phineas and Ferb and you watch Disney, you know who Perry the Platypus is.
Wait, you said what? Don't say that on the you. What'd you say?
Perry the Platypus. Phineas and Ferb on
platypus.
Disney.
Okay, platypus.
Yes. I with the Disney reference.
With Disney reference, homie. I ain't mad. D'Anthony Ford checking in, saying my dog salute. I hope that Kawhi Leonard and PG catch the same kind of heat that LBJ, LeBron James be catching too. I highly doubt that one. I'm not sure that I see that. Tyshawn McClendon, how about that, man? The homie checking in as well. Lakers for the ship. Now, for some of these guys, you're going to see in the bottom left-hand corner their comment. You're going to see the Facebook icon. You're going to see the YouTube icon. That's because we're streaming live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. Just hit up Tate's Take. Tate apostrophe S Take, and make sure that you go ahead and subscribe. Let me get through a couple of the other homies. My dude Mike Dyson, he always shows some love. I'm gonna get you and Dyson here on the same show one of these nights. I'm always busting his balls on the big words he used. I guess plethora, a word of 8 letters. I guess is a big word in Tate's vocabulary. I guess technically it is. Let me get through the rest of these next couple ones, man. Tyshawn McClendon also saying that Doc Rivers is overrated.
I think it was a question. Is he overrated? I don't think he is. Listen, he's got a championship. Yeah, I don't think he is.
This is my question, though. This is my question too. Let's go back to that here for just a second, and we about to turn this into a much longer recap than we need to. But this is what me and you do when you get DT and DT together.
Pick and roll, baby.
Tyshawn is asking, is Doc Rivers overrated? You're saying no. I think I'm saying yes. But here's the question before I even solidify that as a yes. Where do you rate him? Where do you rank him amongst the best active coaches in the NBA right now? So you don't have to literally go through your list. Is he top 5? Is he top 3? Is he top 10? Where do you
rank
top
10?
Him?
He's top 10. He's not top 5. No. I can name 5 better coaches. I can name 5 better coaches in the next 10 seconds if I need to.
Sure, but some people might say that he's a top 5 coach. I mean, how many coaches in the NBA currently right now have a championship?
Yeah, but at the same time, you ask that question, but remember, that championship team, he had 3 Hall of Famers on the same team, and Rajon Rondo, the way basketball. In the Basketball Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame basketball aspect, Rajon Rondo might even be considered for the Basketball Hall of Fame. The way they let anybody in. Okay, yikes. I'm just saying. You have 3 Hall of Famers. You have Garnett, you have Pierce, and you have Ray Allen. No matter what part of the careers they are, everybody was still contributing at a high level at that point in time. So the reason why I don't think Doc is overrated is because I don't have Doc in my top 5 at any point in time. I guess I could name 5 better coaches in the league right now. Nick Nurse is one. That's definitely one. Give me Brad Stevens. Give me Eric Spoelstra. That's 3. I'll take Quinn Snyder in Utah, coaching what he has and getting the literally best out of them and literally one play away from causing more damage. And right behind all of them, I'm not even going to lie, I'll take Steve Kerr. Listen.
Okay, but here's my thing though.
And then give me Pop.
Okay, I got you. But between Stevens and Snyder, neither one of these guys have sniffed a championship. Neither one of these guys has even gone, if I'm not mistaken, to the finals. Like, so what makes them a better coach? And arguably, I'm not saying that Brad Stevens has just as much good talent, but he has a lot better talent than Quinn Snyder and maybe some of the others do. I mean, Brad Stevens is essentially was one game 7 loss away from him either A, being on the hot seat, or B, him not having that job, because he's playing with a chip on his shoulder this year as much as anybody else, because
Remember,
he's underachieved.
Well, remember, they got to the conference finals. They got to game 7 and literally 1 quarter away from the finals. But remember, that team had an injured Kyrie Irving, and they went against LeBron James, who ran the Eastern Conference. That's who beat Brad Stevens and forced Brad Stevens not to be in the finals. Let's just call it what it is. Quinn Snyder hasn't had the same type of talent as Brad Stevens or any of the other coaches I mentioned in front of him. That's why good coaching gets the best out of players. Utah literally got to a game 7, and your 21-point game scorer Bojan Bogdanovic was out for the entire season. He missed the rest of the season. They literally got to a game 7. Now, should they have won that series? Yeah, but guess what? Jamal Murray went nuts in the final 3 games anyway. So it was hard. Donovan Mitchell did everything he could. But remember, he doesn't have the same talent level. But can he coach? Listen, Quinn Snyder can almost outcoach anybody. If you give Quinn Snyder the same roster as, I would say, I don't know, Philadelphia, I guarantee Philadelphia wouldn't have been eliminated in round 1. That's for sure.
But I'm not saying that Doc Rivers is really like that, because I think he is overrated. And most people are probably going to say he's overrated because you only remember what you saw last, which was tonight. But I'm not sure that I could see a Quinn Snyder and the Utah Jazz doing this against the Clippers, what they did tonight. I'm not confident in that. And let's not forget exactly what we just saw out of Mike, out of these guys here on tonight. Like this is real, DT. Like, this is a real thing happening right now. Like, these I'm not sure that, like, when you're talking about Eastern Conference, Boston didn't just beat any old body themselves. Like, Boston took the stairs to get here as well. A lot of people weren't talking about Boston before. People jumped on the Boston bandwagon. So I just want to make sure I remind the people. A lot of people jumped on that Boston bandwagon at the last minute because of the simple fact, like, they had to go through Toronto, who is still a very veteran experience. They don't have Kawhi Leonard. We all get
give me Nick Nurse in the top 5. So that's another. I think I mentioned this Nurse earlier, but give me Nick Nurse in the top 5. And Nick Nurse is an outstanding coach. It's the fact of those two coaches just literally coached each other, and they both made dumb mistakes. It's the fact of Nick Nurse's mistake happened in game 7, and Brad Stevens' mistake happened in a series in game 3 that should have put them up 3-0. That's the only difference. Nurse's mistake happened later, but I don't think Doc is overrated because Doc was never in my top 5.
I respect that. Getting through a couple of the other homies, man. Benjamin Grimes saying Gary Harris, showing a little bit of love for the Sparties. Yeah, saying that it was Denver's defense in the last 3 games that won them the series, plain and simple. Will Witherspoon, Pops, what's popping, man? Saying that Leonard and George 10 for 38 from the field. That by no way, no form can possibly be defense. And also saying that George's shot a wide open 3 off the side of the backboard, wide freaking open. I will never forget that for as long as I live. And we got a couple other people in here, man. And just bear with me, DT, here just for just a second. I know we getting long, but I like to try and do my best to get through as much and many of these as I can. DeAnthony Forrest and they had game 7 to prove it. Kamani Williams, Doc Rivers is trash. We're getting quite a few. Who else haven't I got in on? These are the last 2. Kamani Williams also saying, yes, he's definitely overrated. Prime Paul Pierce, prime Rondo, slightly past prime KG, already passes prime Ray Allen. That's the reason that they won. Had nothing to do with Doc Rivers. Sounds like I was spot on with my Carmelo and Boeheim reference. And then last but certainly not least, also saying that Snyder and Stevens never coached 3 Hall of Famers basically in their prime, though Brad Stevens with 3 Hall of Famers is winning a chip, no question. So I think that all of it makes for some very good points. And just closing out the remainder of this particular game, talking about the Clippers, I don't think that this was really an ideal situation where it's like trying to go buy a championship. I think that Kawhi Leonard is one of those players who has to control his own narrative. Going and teaming up with guys and doing the Spurs system seemed to work perfect. The Toronto, those type of markets, and I'm not going against the decisions he made. He's a grown man. Hopefully he don't have any thoughts on what I decide on as a grown man. Pretty sure he doesn't because I'm a nobody. However, I will say that this way doesn't even look right with the optics. It doesn't even look right for Kawhi Leonard. Their first converted field goal of the fourth quarter came with 5 minutes left remaining in the game. That is atrocious. That makes me want to vomit all over this screen right now. All the stuff that I ate earlier for lunch, breakfast, dinner, all over this screen right now. I'm going to finish it off with this before we move forward. Nikola Jokic, first player with a triple-double in the third quarter in NBA history for a Game 7. First player with 15-plus rebound triple-double in the third quarter in NBA history, regular season and playoffs, and then 19 rebounds, most in Game 7 since 2004. So just wanted to throw those stats out there. As we transition to the next one, DT, and I want to start off with you and just some of your thoughts on what you've seen transpire on tonight. First game of the Eastern Conference Finals, number 5 seeded Miami, take down number 3 seeded Boston. Speaking of Boston earlier, 117-114 in overtime. Miami leads 1-0. Your overall thoughts on that, but starting with where do you rank that block amongst some of the best that you've seen all time by Bam Adebayo, where I give a lot of credit to Jason Tatum for being physical. He got out of his light skin ways. He tried to go in there and just hammer that thing home and punch it in, but he was erased by Big Bam. What's your thoughts on what you're seeing tonight between the third seed and the 5th seed?
I mean, that block was phenomenal. I mean, as far as all-time rejections at the rim, I don't think it still beats LeBron in Game 7 because that's a Game 7 of the NBA Finals against the Warriors. It's almost as good as Tayshaun Prince against the Pacers when he erased Reggie Miller's layup in the playoff series.
But hold on, can I just stop you real quick? DT, please? But those were come from behind, chase downs. This was straight up. Have you ever been in a situation, and I can't tell you I have because I've never been able to dunk or block nobody, but have you ever seen the kids outside playing on the playground and they say, okay, you start from out over there on the perimeter and I'm going to come from an angle down here on the low block, and we going to meet each other intentionally to try and see who can yoke one on the other person first or who can get it erased. That's straight up. That's not no chase down block right there, baby.
But thing is though, if you remember, because you'd be the Piston guy, you remember how much ground Tayshaun Prince covered in that stretch.
Oh, a lot. Right? A lot. I think ostrich legs.
Listen, Tayshaun Prince probably took 3 steps from the other 3-point line to where he leaped. It was like Giannis 3 steps. Okay. It's like Giannis not traveling. That's what he did to block Reggie Miller's layup. And Reggie was wide open. It was simple YMCA cherry picking basketball. All right. And he erased it. LeBron's thing on Iguodala, that saved the NBA Finals. All right. Iguodala makes that layup. Kyrie Irving's shot doesn't even matter in that situation. Now, I'm not going to lie. I give Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler, like, that was literally one-on-one in the streets. You're playing 21. It's 19-19. All right. You got to win by 2. What does Jimmy Butler do? He goes at Jason Tatum. He gets the bucket. You're thinking Jason Tatum is rattled. No, he goes right back at Jimmy Butler, gets by Jimmy Butler. And 99 out of 100, Jason Tatum dunks on Bam Adebayo. 99 out of 100. That block doesn't happen that often. Jason Tatum dunks on people most likely. The only thing I saw was normally if a player gets around, you kind of want to, if you're going to go up, you kind of want to make sure that the shot blocker is a little bit closer to be under the rim. It seemed like Tatum took a little bit of a wider angle, which allowed Bam to have a little bit more space to get that hand up.
Cover.
Yeah, but when Bam had a little bit more space to put his hand in front of that rim, it made for a block opportunity. Most guys would have made that angle a little bit later, make a step or so later, because it's harder to block a shot if your hand's in the rim. It's like a reverse layup. If you're going to shield the defender, use the rim to shield the defender. In most cases, Bam is getting dunked on. You know it, I know it, and everybody has seen Jason Tatum do it. That block was phenomenal.
I want the people to do me a favor, because one thing you wrong about, and I know DT don't be wrong very often. One thing you wrong about is that there is no way that 99 times out of 100, Jason Tatum dunks on Bam Adebayo.
Okay.
Jason Tatum is like that. Okay. You know, because I'm usually always the one that's going to side with the light skins. That's just what I think. I think 98 out of 100, I cannot.
Because
people do this.
I don't think 90 times.
This. At him. At Danny3 Thompson on Twitter. At DANNY, the number 3, THOMPSON. On Twitter, you tell me your thoughts on what you make sure you at me on that. Tag me in as well. At Tate Hoops.
That's fine.
100, you mean
because I don't think Jason Tatum takes that same angle every time, and that's
fine.
That's also good defense by Jimmy Butler. That's also good defense by Jimmy Butler. All right, because of the way Butler defended him, he basically sent him right to Bam. If you're talking about straight up, I'm going straight up. Jason Tatum is not taking that angle. Jason Tatum is smart enough basketball player to know that he is going to get the rim to be able to help him dunk on Adebayo. Because if they're going straight up, yeah, it's a higher block likelihood. But Tatum's a smart offensive player. Like I said, give Jimmy Butler credit, and that's a hell of a block by Adebayo. It's still one of the best blocks I have seen, because I jumped out of my chair when I saw it. I was like, oh, did this just happen? I'm literally covering the Phoenix Mercury game tonight, and I got picture-in-picture on my TV, because I got the Mercury game on one side, and I got the Celtics game on the other side, and I had to literally stop what I'm doing and go back over to the Celtics game and rewind the TV, because did I just see that? Phenomenal block. But yeah, I think Tatum doesn't take that angle, and the angle that he took allowed the block shot to happen at a higher rate.
I can't believe my boy DT, man. I'm gonna need you to change your initials. I can't believe my boy DT
I'm giving LSU some love here. When do I ever do that?
I know. It's a light skin thing, but you got to know when to do it, baby. It's about timing, just like a block.
Listen,
it's about timing. Listen, you trying to treat Bam Adebayo like he's Spud Webb, Muggsy Bogues, or
no? I'm not saying. I've never said that.
Earl Boykins or something, bro.
Because if that was Rudy Gobert down there, I'd say the same thing too. So it's not because it's Bam. It's not because he's not light skinned. It's the fact of, in most cases, guys do get dunked on in that situation because of the angles they take. And I've watched Jason Tatum play enough games, and he's a very smart guy, that he knows where the angles were. Jimmy Butler angled him perfectly, because Jimmy Butler has been in this league longer. He's one of the top 2 or 3 on-ball defenders in the league, and he is smart enough to know that I got a guy who's second team all defense for this reason back there. So if I just shield his body just enough that wherever angles that he takes, Bam is going to have the best ability to block it. But in most cases, if Jason Tatum doesn't have a defender there, like Jimmy Butler guarding him, and he just literally gets by him, I guarantee you he dunks that basketball from a different angle. And that's why I'm saying. And that's my point of it. I'm not taking away from Adebayo. Adebayo is a great shot blocker. Not elite. He's a very good shot blocker.
These are 2 teams that I really believe that coming into the game, you can expect some heavy defense, deep and talented, very disciplined rotations, role players, 2 fearless teams, fluid offenses, high IQs, well-coached teams. And when you were talking about Brad Stevens and the players you don't have in comparison to what Doc Rivers had and so forth, we're forgetting all about one guy. Not saying he really liked that, but we're forgetting about one guy on this team that has not come back yet. Expect that he'll come back soon, because I know that recovery process has been relatively ahead of schedule for him. That's 17 points per game that's been erased so far over the course of about 10 games of not having Gordon Hayward. But it's a rematch of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals. And And it's two teams that has very ideal balance of youth and experience on their team. So it's very evenly matched. Now, I wouldn't think that it would be anything remotely close to or remotely different, if you will, than the series that we saw between Boston and Toronto. And this is one that I thought that Miami has probably honestly has met it and has met its match, if I'm being honest. But probably the most impressive thing for me when it comes to Miami, and I want to get your take on how you think Miami can win this series. What does Miami have to do to prevent losing this series? Is one thing that's been impressive to me about them is that their shooting production and their shooting contribution between Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, between those three guys. And we'll get into Goran Dragic in a minute because he's the unsung hero since they've been returned back to the bubble. But between those three guys, they haven't been able to get those three guys on the same page all at once, which could be even more impressive of a future. Tyler Hero looked good, but can they afford not to get all of those three guys to play great together over the course of this series and still not get eliminated?
I mean, if Gordon Hayward comes back, which is expected to be game 3, it looks like. I mean, really, game 3 is pushing it. I think if Boston is down in the series, you see Gordon Hayward in game 3 at some point. If it's unless they're down 3-0, then you don't risk it at that point because no reason to get a guy potentially hurt going into next season. I think to answer your question about getting Hero, Kendrick Nunn, and Duncan Robinson involved all together, that just makes Miami even more dangerous on the perimeter. But can Miami win this series? Yes, they can. What Miami has is the fact that when you look at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they have guys who can score on the perimeter. Even Gordon Hayward gets back. But you have the old wily veterans. You have guys like Jimmy Butler. You have Jay Crowder. You have Andre Iguodala. And you have Derrick Jones Jr. finally healthy. A multitude of guys that can defend those two guys on all stretches of the floor. You know, people forget how good defensively Derrick Jones Jr. is. People think he's just a dunking machine. He's extremely long. He's 6'9", but when you watch him get in the defensive stance, like this guy is extremely long. You saw what he did with Jason Tatum at the end of regulation and in overtime when he was basically guarding him one-on-one. And you saw what Jay Crowder did with Kemba Walker at the end of the game, where Kemba had no lift on the shot. And that's another key in the series. Boston's going to need not just Gordon Hayward. They're going to need Kemba Walker they're going to need Kemba to look like Charlotte Kemba Walker. There are times in this game where, because Kemba Walker is the only player, I'll be honest with you, DT, he's the only player Miami can't guard. Goran Dragic cannot guard Kemba Walker one-on-one. Kendrick Nunn can't do it either. If you put Tyler Hero on, it's going to be a problem. Kemba Walker one-on-one will either A, take you off the dribble and hit a step back on you.
Step back.
Or if you try to play him too close, he can blow by you with his handle and get to the lane for an easy floater, jump shot, wherever you want to do in the lane. And Kemba's not afraid to get fouled. I still think Kemba Walker is hurt. On that last shot where he got blocked in regulation by Jay Crowder, where he got past the defender and it looked like he had little to no lift before Jay Crowder almost threw the ball down his throat, that's not the Kemba Walker I'm used to seeing. Kemba still doesn't look healthy at all.
Well, he's doing himself a huge disservice by going out there. I don't know how many consecutive games it's been now, not just tonight, but prior to tonight, where I've seen 1 for 5 from 3, 1 for 9 from 3, 3 for 15 from the field, 3 for 19.
4-17 tonight.
Yeah, 4-17 tonight. Yeah, exactly. And that's just been consistent. When was the last time that Kemba Walker shot, let's just say, above 35, 37% from 3 and above 40% from the field? I think it's been quite some time.
It's probably the early part of the bubble, if not before the bubble. He came into the bubble injured, and it seemed like he hasn't gotten the lift on his jump shot because it's funny because it seems like Marcus Smart and Kemba Walker have changed shooting percentages all of a sudden. Marcus Smart is used to shooting like this. Marcus Smart is knocking down 3-pointers and hitting like 8 of 12 from the floor like he did tonight. Marcus Smart is shooting like Kemba Walker, and Kemba Walker is shooting like Marcus Smart. That's not how this is supposed to work, Boston fans. And I know they know this. Kemba Walker is a key to this series, and more important, is just as important as I'm going to say this, as Jimmy Butler is in the fourth quarter. What we saw tonight in Jimmy Butler in the fourth quarter in overtime was the reason why they brought Jimmy Butler into Miami. That shot he hit in the corner, that's all Jimmy Butler being Jimmy Butler in the games. The going one-on-one with Jason Tatum, who's been arguably one of the best on-ball defenders in the entire playoffs. Look at his shooting percentage numbers and what he allows effectively and percentage-wise. Tatum's in the top 2 or 3 or maybe 4 or 5 in the entire league, no matter what position it is, in on-ball defense. Butler took the challenge. Remember when Milwaukee won that game? I want to say it was game 4 in the last series. Jimmy Butler went missing in the fourth quarter. When Jimmy is completely aggressive, not just on defense, but on offense, it makes things easier. He had 12 points through 3 quarters, but he had 8 points in the fourth quarter and overtime combined. They need Jimmy Butler to come up in those big moments.
Miami, the fewest points scored in the first quarter this postseason, with 18 points at the end of the first quarter. And I tell you what, that alone within itself, I think is just goes to show and kind of speaks volume, to them still being able to hang in there and to get a win against a team that is just as confident. I mean, you think about it. We have the second most clutch player in this entire playoffs to Jimmy Butler has been Marcus Smart. There was a point in time where we were talking about who's the 2 most impressive teams, Western Conference included, in this entire playoffs. And it's these 2 teams that are playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. Miami, Duncan Robinson, clearly a liability on defense, hasn't been a shell nearly of himself. 3 minutes in 3 minutes picked up 3 had 3 points and picked up 3 fouls. And that was with 6:43 left in the second quarter. Miami's first lead came on a Jimmy Butler teardrop. 6 minutes left in the second quarter. 39-38, and then Miami's overall 9-2 now in overtime, or 8-2. I'm sorry, 8-2 in overtime, most and best overtime record in the NBA. Now, as far as Boston goes, in terms of when we're talking about guys like Marcus Smart, I heard Doris Burke say something earlier today that just made so much sense. And I want you to tell me if this guy can kind of play on your team any day or not, DT. But she said he's intelligent, but he's dramatic. He's the guy that I feel like is so underappreciated, has given you so much more than what you can not only expect, but just what he really can give you consistently on offense. His defense overshadows his offense. 26 points tonight, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, 50% from the field, and 50% from 3. He's that guy, DT, that a lot of people hate, but you'd probably love him just that much if he played on your team.
And what player is that? Marcus Smart?
That would be Marcus Smart.
I mean, Marcus Smart's a guy you want to go in the foxhole with. I mean, listen, Marcus Smart is an aggravating defender that is so physically strong that he might not have the size, but he has the strength to go against guys way bigger than him. He's got the wingspan. He is a guy that plays defense he's not a passing lane defender. He is a lockdown defender. And when I say lockdown, and he's one of the few pure lockdown defenders in the league. Yes, like you say, he might be annoying, but now he's developing a shot to go along with that defense. That means if he's hitting shots, he can't come off the court because you're going to need him on the defensive side of the ball. And now, because teams have for years forgotten that he exists on offense, he's had plenty of time to make that jump shot roll. And you know what? It's a key part because Kemba, like I mentioned earlier, Kemba Walker's shot has it hasn't arrived in Orlando yet. So since his jump shot is still on a plane somewhere going through airport security, Marcus Smart knocking down shots is the most important thing. And I'll tell you this. We talk about guys who don't get the credit for what they, for the roles they do. You look at Marcus Smart on Miami side. Listen, Goran Dragic on the other side has been just as good as Marcus Smart has. Goran Dragic not only has played himself into making Miami consider the future. But whatever team signs him this summer that goes after him, Dallas, is going to get an all-star level point guard at this point in his career. I think he's good. Listen, you talk, oh, should we pay him? Listen, he's 34 years old. He came off the bench. He did the bench role very well. Now, let's be honest, he's the reason why Kendrick Nunn has been an afterthought. The first team all rookie point guard that was in the top 3 for rookie of the year has been an afterthought. Why? Not because Kendrick Nunn hasn't played well, but Goran Dragic has made this man stuck to the pine. Jimmy Butler's one thing. Bam Adebayo, he hasn't been rebounding like I thought he would, but the guy that's been the most important player besides Butler has been Dragic, because Duncan Robinson hasn't hit that many shots in the playoffs either.
Yeah, that being said, too, when you start talking about some of these matchups, like who doesn't enjoy Jay Crowder on Jason Tatum? Who doesn't enjoy what reminds me of kind of like, I don't know, I guess kind of reminds me of 80s basketball a little bit when you start talking about the mentalities and the physical play and tough, rugged mentality of like a Jimmy Butler and a Marcus Smart guarding each other. Like that is what this whole thing is all about. That's what NBA playoff basketball is all about. And as much as I've been missing that 80s basketball, and we used to talk, me and you were talking all the time during, the Last Dance, who's going to be the player that is going to channel that inner MJ competitiveness? That has been these two guys in addition to Jason Tatum as well. So I definitely want to tip the cap. I know we only got a little less than 5 minutes here, so I want to get through a couple things. Boston, obviously, arguably the best defense in the bubble, number one in opposing points per game and field goal percentage scoring defense. And the job that Jason Tatum has done with his improved shot selection, shot creation, that sidestep three that I'll be completely honest that I hate. Yet still, even with a loss, the job that Bradley Stevens has been able to do, even bringing in some of the Williams brothers, the Grant Williams and the Robert Williams, just being a body out there. And then, obviously after losing Daniel Tice due to some foul trouble, who you taking game 2 on this one, DT, from everything you've seen based on tonight?
Listen, I think Boston will take game 2, but I still think Miami wins the series in 6. If you like you said, old school basketball that has so many different storylines, this is the series to watch because Brad Stevens and Eric Spoelstra both can coach. And if you got two guys who can coach and coach very well, substitution patterns are going to be made, adjustments are going to be made. I think Brad Stevens will do a little bit more adjusting in game 2. I think you'll see a lot more screen and roll action for Kemba Walker. A lot of pick. I think you'll see a lot more pick and roll with Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker on the top. Now, if Daniel Tice's injury situation does play a key role, because Tice is actually a very underrated roll man to the rim, this might be the game that we might see Enes Kanter actually come off the bench for once. If Daniel Tice can't play extended minutes, because Robert Williams is really technically only one-sided, which is defense and catching lobs. You're going to need somebody in the offense, especially on the glass, because Miami uses a whole bunch of guys in the glass. And one thing Enes Kanter does, he might not play defense. Enes Kanter can score in the post and he can rebound. He's a guy that's going to be needed. And Brad Stevens has the ability to dust him off. I think if Enes Kanter gets in the game, I think he does something good on was it Thursday night for game 2. So I like Boston in game 2, but I'm still taking Miami to win the series.
There's a name talking about this Boston team that we haven't brought up throughout this whole time. I was kind of waiting to see if you would. I'll definitely be the one to do it. I'm not saying I want to find out from you who the best player on this Boston team is. Smart has obviously played really well. A lot of people are still going to say Kemba Walker. The consensus, I'm sure, will say that it's Jason Tatum. But, dude, and I'm not saying he's the best player, but he's not nearly as far away from it as some people think. I just think that he's kind of standing in the shadow just a little bit. Jaylen Brown is really like that. Who is the best player on this Celtics team to DT?
The best player on the team is Jason Tatum, but the X factor is Jaylen Brown. That answers your question. Tatum is the best player on the team, and he's one of the top 25 players in the league. But Jaylen Brown is not that far behind him. But if Jaylen Brown is Jaylen Brown, like we talk about how good he is, Boston's almost unbeatable in the series because both guys will give you 60 points a game potentially, and you haven't even talked about Kemba Walker. That's the difference in this series. No matter if Gordon Hayward plays or not, if Jaylen Brown plays like the Jaylen Brown that should have been the All-Star team this year, Boston, I don't know what Miami's going to be able to do, even with Jay Crowder and Iguodala, because, man, Jaylen Brown's a monster when he's on. He's a monster when he's on.
Who did you have playing in the conference finals between both conferences? Who did you have going to the finals, and who did you have winning it?
Are we really reliving this moment again, sir?
I'm talking about before, and then obviously we'll get into now.
Before, we talked. I had Lakers and Bucks. I had the Lakers winning. I had the Bucks winning the championship. I believed in Giannis. I believed in the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year. It is what it is. I did have Lakers Clippers, and I did have Milwaukee over Boston in the conference finals. Something about Toronto. I didn't think Toronto was going to the conference finals. I knew Boston was going to be good enough to get there. I just figured Boston couldn't stop Giannis in a 7-game series. That's what I had in the beginning of the playoffs.
What happens now that the slate is set for both conference games, and then obviously who's your finals pick and to win it all?
It's still, I have Lakers and Heat in the finals. I think the Lakers will get tested by Denver in ways they have not been tested before.
How many games?
I think Lakers in 6. I still think the Nuggets will win some games. I don't think the Lakers breeze through the series. I think the Nuggets will throw every punch they have. There's going to be a game or so in this series where Jamal Murray is going to go unconscious and the Lakers won't be able to stop it. And there's going to be another game when Nikola Jokic basically has a triple-double and slices the Lakers defense like Swiss cheese. The problem is LeBron James is on the other side of the court, and the Nuggets don't have anybody who can guard him. So if they get in the games in the fourth quarter, as we saw against the Houston Rockets, LeBron's going to find ways to be aggressive, whether it be posting up somebody or making shots easier. You mentioned before, Rajon Rondo changes the whole dynamic of everything with the Lakers because LeBron doesn't have to be the facilitator all the time. Rondo can run the pick and roll, and I think in this series you'll see more of Dwight Howard. You will see more of JaVale McGee in the series because Jokic is down there. Now Denver will win this series for two ways. All right, number one, Michael Porter Jr. is going to have like the Michael Porter Jr. that looked like we saw before the playoffs started. If Michael Porter Jr. gets around 17 points a game, 17, 18 points a game, and gets enough shots because he's dangerous enough to do it.
That's a tough ask.
Listen, the key, the X factors in both series is this. For the Lakers, is Kyle Kuzma. Kuzma has to be the third guy for the Lakers when it comes to scoring. If Rajon Rondo is your second leading scorer, you're asking for elimination. Kyle Kuzma's job and his role is to be not only the sixth man, but to be the third best scorer on a team that has 2 top 5 players in the league. Kuzma's job is to be that third guy. Michael Porter Jr. is the other guy for Denver because in Denver's case, you got Jokic, who's not asked to score, but can score when needed, and Jamal Murray, who is a pure scorer. So Michael Porter Jr. has the ability to be a pure scorer. We've seen it on time and time again. We've watched him catch fire. We watched it. We saw him hit the big shot early in the last series. He can knock down shots. They got to get him going. I like Paul Millsap, but Paul Millsap is not a guy I need to give me 18 points a game because he does it the old man. He does it the old man YMCA game. Michael Porter Jr. can go inside and outside. If they can get him going early and keep him going in the game, not just let him get going early and then go to Jokic and Murray, you got to keep him in the flow of offense. If he gets to 18, 19 points a game in this series, the Lakers can't guard him. What is LeBron going to do in the fourth quarter? Is he going to go after Porter? Is he going to go after Jamal Murray? That way, you're going to leave a KCP on him, Kyle Kuzma. That's not a good look for the Lakers if Porter is hitting shots. But Mike Malone has got to figure out how to get this kid in the game, and Michael Porter Jr. has got to stop worried about getting himself in the offensive flow at the same time. But I still got Lakers in 6, and I have Heat in 6.
Okay, Lakers over Heat. I'm going to imagine that's where you're going with it. How many games?
Here's the problem I have in that Lakers series.
Jimmy
Butler's going to want LeBron James. Jimmy Butler is the ultimate. Jimmy Butler is the confident guy that gets on your nerves, but he gets the job done. He's going to want LeBron James in every single major moment in this game. Anthony Davis will have a problem with Bam Adebayo because here's the thing. Davis doesn't like to bang in the post. He likes to play jump shots. So if Anthony Davis wants to post at Bam Adebayo, have fun with that. Bam is just as strong, if not stronger than Anthony Davis. Bam is also athletic and mobile. So guess what? If Anthony wants to take him on the perimeter, Bam will go out there with him. The real question is if Bam is have to come out there, will Miles Leonard, will Kelly Olynyk, will whoever big that's on the floor, that's got to keep Dwight Howard off the boards, keep him off the boards. Miami can shoot the basketball. We mentioned Duncan Robinson. We mentioned Tyler Hero. We mentioned Gordon Dragic. Jay Crowder is dangerous from the corners from the three-point line. I'm not asking Jimmy Butler to shoot the basketball. It's going to come down to, in late game situations, can LeBron James guard Jimmy Butler, and can Jimmy Butler stop LeBron James? That's why I think that series will be a little bit more interesting because Eric Spoelstra will outcoach Frank Vogel any day of this week. Nothing against Frank Vogel. Eric Spoelstra will outcoach him in the series.
LeBron against his old team. Who
and his
wins?
Old coach.
How many? How many?
It's going to be Lakers in 7. And it will be a very close game 7. It's just that you have a team that has LeBron James with 3 championships against a team whose most experienced player is a guy that's not going to play 30 minutes a night. The Heat have, outside of Iguodala, nobody else in that roster, with the exception of Udonis Haslem, who's in street clothes, has actually played a meaningful game in the finals. Experience, Rondo's been in the finals, 3 times? LeBron's been 9. Okay, J.R. Smith has played in the finals plenty of times. You have guys on that roster, he doesn't play. You have guys on that roster, Jared Dudley, guys who've been around this league for a long time. Very, very much experienced veterans against a team that's only got one guy that's going to play that has been in the finals. I mean, I think Jay Crowder might have played with Cleveland, but it's more experience. Spoelstra's got championships as a coach, but there's so much more experience on the floor, and sometimes coaches can't be on the floor with players. They just call plays.
Contributor for 3-point conversion at SI.com. Y'all remember his predictions and his projections. In case he wrong or I guess right, make sure that you go and follow him on all social media platforms at Danny3 Thompson. That is at DANNY3, the number 3, Thompson, THOMPSON. As we get ready to close out, appreciate everybody for checking us out. We done win a 107. We don't win an hour and 7 minutes long on a 15 to 20 minute little recap, but it's all good. It's playoffs. You ain't got nothing better to do. They don't play Tuesday night football or anything like that. So it's all good. We got my basketball back. So I appreciate everybody for checking me out. Remember to subscribe. I cannot stress it enough. To Take the podcast anywhere you find your favorite podcast, that being iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Red Circle, the whole 9. Also, don't leave out YouTube. Go and subscribe to Take the podcast on YouTube as well, and follow along on all social media platforms at Tate's Take Hoops, TATESTAKEHOOPS. Give me about 47 hours or so from now to where we can do all this thing again, because there's no more basketball on tomorrow. It'll resume back on Thursday, and we'll be back with another recap. So for DT and this DT, Tate's Take, Danny Thompson, appreciate everybody for listening. Don't forget to subscribe. Peace.